Looking back on my 20s, I've made so many mistakes, but in turn have gained many valuable and insightful lessons. Some of these lessons were so powerful that they have drastically altered the trajectory of my life, which in turn helped me strive towards being the best version of myself possible. So in today's video, I'll be sharing 4 life-changing lessons that have shaped the way I view the 4 pillars of life: health, wealth, happiness, and relationships. So let's get into it. Hi friends, if you're new to the channel, my name is Christian. I'm an occupational therapist by trade and a self-proclaimed video gaming nerd. On this channel, we discuss real-life lessons and strategies that will help you level up in the game of life. Now, for lesson number 1, I want to discuss the topic of health. Now, in my 20s, I worked out a lot, right? And the main motivation that I did that was that I wanted to look good, I wanted to look sexy, I want to get that sexy nerd vibe going.
Nerd alert!
And basically that was it. I didn't put much thought into it. I just wanted to look good, and that was the reason I wanted to be healthy. But now that I'm in my 30s, and having half a decade of experience in the healthcare industry, my perspective of health has really changed. In fact, a really funny story is that just a month after I turned 30, I went to the gym and I think I was squatting and I ended up tweaking my back. It was the first time that it ever happened that I hurt my back working out. And that's when I started to realize that, oh my goodness, as I age, I'm not as indestructible anymore. Because I remember in my 20s, I was absolutely reckless with my body. I would go snowboarding, do all these crazy jumps, grinding on the rails, and I would fall, I would hurt myself, I would break some ribs, and I would just keep on going, right? I was absolutely reckless with it. And yes, then it was a lot of fun, but now that in my 30s, I'm starting to really think about how I take care of my health. And a main motivation for this is because of my experience working in the healthcare industry. So to give you guys a little context, I work as an occupational therapist, and my job is to help people regain their independence when it comes to taking care of themselves once they have any sort of traumatic injury. So imagine that you broke a bone or you just went through surgery. My job as the occupational therapist is to essentially help you get back into, taking care of yourself, getting dressed in the morning, going to the restroom, getting back to your job, walking around, all these sorts of stuff all relate to the idea of health. And what I started to realize is this: it doesn't matter how much success you have in life, it doesn't matter how much status you have, the connections that you have, that if you're not healthy, nothing else is going to matter. Because I work with all these patients in the healthcare industry which have, they led amazing lives, right? They travel, they do all these different things, but the moment they get sick, the moment that they lose their independence, everything comes crashing down. So lesson number 1 is that health is the foundation in which we build our life upon. Now you want to imagine life as this pyramid, right? And health is essentially at the bottom, the foundation there. And then of course, there's going to be your careers, wealth, relationships, all stacked up on top of that. But if you don't have the foundation, everything comes crashing down. And what I find is that in the whole hamster wheel of life, we're constantly chasing all these different things, right? We're chasing careers, we're chasing money, we're chasing relationships, chasing all the exciting things in life, that often health gets left in the background. All of us realize that there is some aspects of health we have need to take care of, but because of how busy things are, we tend to forget, we tend to ignore it, and that's when things get a little dangerous, because we think we have a lot more time than we actually do. And just me, my experience at least working in the healthcare industry, I have seen that things can take a turn so quickly. When you're in your 20s and your 30s, you think oh my, I have such a long time more in life. It's not till 50 or 60 that I need to worry about my health. But no, I have seen young individuals, 20, 30s, that suddenly have a stroke, suddenly have some sort of brain injury. And I'm not saying that, if you're being healthy, that you can completely forego any of these problems, that it'll never happen to you. But all I'm saying is that taking care of your health is going to reduce the risk that any of these kind of things happening. And you don't really realize how important your health is. You don't realize how important your independence is until you lose it. So one thing that I've learned at least is that I want to make it a point that my health is something I'm putting a priority on, because even though I'm hustling, trying to grow this YouTube channel, trying to work my jobs, trying to make sure that my relationship with my wife is doing good, I always want to prioritize my health. At least, making sure I keep in mind what I'm eating, making sure I'm working out day to day. Everyone's going to be a little different. I'm no health expert, but I'm just saying that don't take your health for granted, because your health gives you independence, and with independence you can pursue all these other things in life. But without it, nothing else is going to matter. So that there is lesson number 1. So for lesson number 2, let's discuss the topic of money. Now this is a really touchy one, but it's something that all of us think about. I mean, a lot of us go to work, we work 9 to 5 jobs, 40 hours a week, and we just slave away just so that we can get that money to sustain our lifestyles. One thing you need to know about me is that I'm absolutely obsessed with the concept of financial freedom. So if you are too, definitely stick around. I have a lot of thoughts about this through my process of learning about wealth. And one of my biggest regrets or lessons essentially essentially is the whole idea of investing, because I started investing in 2021 and I wish I started way earlier. And the big problem is this, is that in my 20s, my whole idea of what it means to be rich and wealthy is that I had to take on debt to go to get my bachelor's degree, and then take on more debt to maybe get my master's or doctorate degree, and then after that work my butt off to pay off that debt, but not before taking on more debt to get a house, and in that process maybe throw in a kid, go on some traveling, get some nice stuff. And when you really say all this out loud, it doesn't really make a lot of sense if your whole purpose or your main objective was to get financial freedom, because we really need to start thinking about why do we want to become rich. I think a lot of us always think about how can we make more money, but we don't exactly ask ourselves why do we want more money. But for me at least, the reason I feel that I want more money, and the reason I feel a lot of people do want more money in life, is because they want freedom. They want the ability to do what they want in the world without having money restrict them, without having money to cause a lot of stress in their lives. And the problem here is that while we were growing up, we weren't really taught about any of this, because at least my experience is that when I went to college, my parents, the teachers, society would simply teach me that this was the path. You had to go to college, do all these things, but there was not really a lot of education, not really a lot of talks about how to invest, how to save your money, how to make your money work for you, how to leverage your time. There was not a lot of discussions of this, right? It's simply like, hey, get this degree, get this skill, and work your butt off, and hopefully you're gonna do well. But you're gonna have to take on a lot of debt to actually do that. It completely contradicts. This is a paradox right here, that to be rich, you have to spend so much money to get there. So I started questioning this. I started to try to understand, like, what exactly makes someone rich? What exactly is the path to getting towards financial freedom? So lesson number 2 is that wealth is created by owning assets and living below your means. Because if you really think about it, the majority of people, and at least how I used to think, is that you had to earn a lot of money in order to sustain your lifestyle. But the problem is that our society is built on the concept of capitalism, because you're constantly having to spend more to inflate your lifestyle, and that's essentially how you're seen as successful. But the more that you do this, the more that you get stuck in this hamster wheel where you're just working and working and working, but not exactly getting more freedom, just because you have all these things you have to pay off. Right? You have your mortgage, you have to pay off your student loans, you have to pay off that fancy car, all these different things. And this keeps you trapped. This keeps you away from your main purpose, your main reason you wanted to be rich in the first place, which is freedom. So you have to understand this, that we only have a limited amount of time as human beings on this earth. We have a finite amount of hours left. And if we're going to spend most of that time working away to get that money, then aren't we really giving away our freedom? That goes against why we wanted to be rich. So the lesson number 2 that I learned in my 20s is essentially this, is that wealth is created by owning assets and living below your means. So when I say owning assets, I mean investing, actually putting your money to work. Now, this doesn't necessarily just mean buying a house or just investing in the stock market. There are many ways to do this, but I want you to get in the mindset that any money that you make right now, that money is essentially a resource that's going to help you achieve the freedom that you want. Most people get that money and they use it simply to survive, to pay off for their lifestyle, to pay off all the mortgages. Everybody's situation is going to be different. Sometimes things can be really difficult. We're essentially living in an economy right now where there's a lot of inflation, there's a lot of debt, and things are simply difficult. A lot of people are struggling. I just realized that there's no easy way out of it, but at least the first step that you can do is start educating yourself about it. Start learning, start trying to understand, right? How can you save better? What kind of investments can you start to make based off what you're saving? How can you be more efficient with your money? Things like that. Just trying to understand the whole concept, because ultimately we have to be very logical about this. It's a simple math equation, right? If we want to be rich, we need to be able to make money without having to expend our time. And the only way we can do that is having assets, having a business, having our stocks, having some property that's rented away, actually giving money to us without us having to physically put in time to work. So if we're able to save more money and put that money into investments, as opposed to saving that money and putting it into paying off your debt, paying off all your fancy cars, fancy clothes, all that kind of stuff, then realistically in time you eventually get more wealthy. So there's lesson number 2. Now, if you guys are enjoying this video up to this point, go ahead and smash that like button and drop me a sub. I'm really just a nerd who's just showing the lessons, teaching the lessons that I'm learning as I'm going through life that can hopefully help you up, level up in the game as well. All of us are playing this game and all of us should really work together to try to figure things out. So hopefully you gain some value from this, and let's get back into the video. Alright, so for lesson number 3 in my 20s is the concept of happiness. Now, this is a pretty big one because as human beings, all of us strive to be happy. All of us want to feel good. We just want want to be happy in life, right? We want to pursue the more fun things. Now, of course, all of us are unique individuals, so happiness is defined differently for all of us. For me, at least, happiness is when I get to play video games. I've been playing video games since I was a kid, and when I'm playing video games, I just feel really happy. I'm just a nerd like that. Don't blame me, don't shoot me. I know a lot of people like video games as well. But what I really tried to do is I tried to dissect why did I like playing video games so much? And I came up with this, is that when I'm playing video games, the best part of playing a video game is when I'm actually seeing improvements in my character, when I'm leveling up, when I'm gaining new skills, new discoveries. That there is the most fun part of a video game, because I realize when I eventually get too strong, when I beat a game where there's no more new things to discover, the video game becomes a lot less fun for me, and in turn, I get a lot less happy playing the video game. And when I kind of brought this concept into real life, I started to realize like, oh, maybe that's how people feel happiness as well. When they're actually achieving something, when they earn something, when they're feeling that they're leveling up, they're growing in the game of life. That there is what true happiness is. Because my perspective at least is that the majority of people, we live with the concept that happiness is when we're able to do exactly what we want. So we go to work, we kind of dread it, we work a 9-to-5 job, 40 hours a week, and all we're doing is we're looking forward to the weekend to go to the beach, weekend to go on vacation, to do our hobbies that we want. And that's all we tie our happiness to. But don't you think that's kind of a waste of how we feel happiness? Because shouldn't we feel happiness the majority of the time? Of course, we can't do it all the time, but the majority we should feel it. And I found that lesson number 3, at least in my 20s, is that the key to happiness is continuously growing. Because when you're continuously growing, even if it's a job, even if it's something mundane like going to the gym or something, if you can feel that you're constantly leveling up, progressing, learning about stuff, then you would feel contented. You would feel like you're making progress, and in turn, you would feel happy doing so. Of course, not in the sense that, oh, I get to lay back in the beach and this is all nice, I don't have to do anything. Not that kind of happiness, but the happiness that you're making progress, you're progressing. I think that there is really true happiness. Because at least for me, in my 20s, my experience was that I went to college, then I went to masters. I was pursuing my wife at the time, of course we were courting each other and everything. Eventually I met all these goals, right? I got my masters, I had a great degree, I got a great job, I got my wife to marry me and all this kind of stuff. So I met all these big goals, but right after that happened, I stopped trying to pursue further things already. I got comfortable with my job, I got comfortable with my relationship, and essentially I hit a period where I got everything in life and I thought that, wow, I'm really happy right now. But the ironic thing is, I started to feel a little uneasy. I started to feel restless. Something just wasn't right, even though I had everything in life that I wanted already. And that's when I started to realize is that because I stopped my growth, because I stopped trying to learn more, trying to chase something, stopped having bigger dreams, that life became a lot more dull. And I think this can be applied to a lot of people, where the only thing we're looking forward to is this weekend where we get to do something fun and we go back to our boring 9-to-5 job. Not saying that my 9-to-5 job is boring, by the way. I love being an occupational therapist, don't get me wrong. But the concept is this though, is that you always have something, you need to have something to pursue, something you're growing towards. If you're working a job, you have to be trying to grow a certain skill in it, get better in it. What is the next level? For me, at least right now, starting this YouTube channel is something that is very new to me, but I'm continuously trying to improve on it, and that's exciting for me. It's not to say it's easy. I mean, it's hella difficult. I'm trying to figure things out. The concept of trying to level up, to pursue, just like in the video game, makes things so much more fun. And really the key to all this, the key to growth, is continuously educating yourself and applying that education to real life scenarios. So if you're learning about something specifically, you have to apply what you're learning about. So for example, when I'm shooting this video, I was just, watching videos on how to be more confident on camera, watching videos on how to maybe edit my videos a little bit more, make the thumbnails a little more, that pops up. Hopefully, if you clicked on this video, the thumbnail or the title actually got you into it. And it's because I'm trying to learn on the skill, and it may not be perfect, but the process of leveling up is actually what is fun. Now, if I'm completely the best of it already, then this whole process is not going to be as fun anymore, and it wouldn't be as happy for me to actually do it. So I know I kind of went off a tangent there, but just understand that continuous growth is really the key to happiness. So if you find yourself stuck in a position where everything is really dull, you don't feel motivated, try finding something in life that you want to improve in, and then learn about it. Go on YouTube, read books, try to take some courses, whatever it is, just learn about it and try to apply it to your life, and do it day after day after day. As you get better, it might bring a little more satisfaction in your life, and in turn it might make you feel a lot more happy, give you some kind of purpose. So yeah, that there is lesson number 3, and I hope it kind of helps you guys out. Alright, for lesson number 4, let's talk about love. Yeah, relationships, right? I just want to start off this by saying one of my proudest achievements is actually surviving a long distance relationship. Now, a little backstory, me and my wife, we met in high school in Malaysia, a country in Southeast Asia. And essentially once we were ready for college, I came to the US and she went all the way to Sydney, opposite sides of the world. And long story short, our relationship didn't really work out then. So we broke off and we went about our lives. But many years later, when I visited Malaysia, so happened my now wife was in Malaysia as well, and we kind of rekindled that romance, right? And at the time, she was working in Malaysia and I was growing my life in the US. But this time, instead of just simply like, oh, we're gonna be breaking up because it's gonna be a long distance relationship, what I told myself is that, you know what, let's try this long distance relationship and I'm going to do anything it takes to make us work, anything it takes. And here we are many years later, and she's finally in the US and we're happily married. But I can say that was such a difficult time. And let me tell you that love just alone wasn't what made us through. What actually helped us make it through is the commitment to one another, the commitment to the relationship. So lesson number 4 is that relationships take commitment. Love is simply an emotion. Many people tend to overly rely on the concept of, oh, I have to love you unconditionally and all that kind of stuff. That way, that's how a relationship works. But that's not how it works though, because relationships take, of course, a lot of compromise. It takes a lot of sacrifice. When you actually make that commitment, make that decision to be with some person, that's how relationships tend to flourish. So during that long distance relationship period, me and my wife committed to weekly Skype calls, really nerdy and cheesy virtual dates. And of course, brief but absolutely priceless visits to one another, where I would travel all the way to Malaysia or she would travel all the way to the US just so we can spend a week or two together. And every time we have to part, it was so painful. And there were many times I was like, is this even really worth it? Is this really what I want? And every time I felt that, I was like, yes, that is what I want. So I committed to it, and I'm very thankful that she did as well. And because we both were committed to the relationship, eventually we made it work despite all the other challenges. So the whole idea is that our relationship didn't just happen by chance. It took a lot of work, it took a lot of sacrifice, it took a lot of commitment. So if there's someone in your life that you want to form a relationship, whether this doesn't necessarily just mean a lover, right, or a partner, this can be friends, this can be family, it's going to take commitment from you to actually check up on them, put in the time to see them. It's not just going to happen out of the blue, it's not just going to happen by chance. You actually have to put in work, just like many things in life, in order to make it work. And that's something that my 20-year-old self didn't realize, right? We thought that love can make it all good, because we love each other, everything's gonna work. But I didn't realize that it took so much work, took so much commitment. And that's one thing that I started to learn a little bit more to actually sustain my relationship with my wife. I know that I have to put in work, put in sacrifice, actually listen to her, actually try to understand how I can make the relationship better. And that's how I stay a great husband, and at least that's how I hope to be better as I continue on with my relationship as I go through life. So to summarize the 4 lessons that we've learned today, so number 1, health is the foundation in which we build our lives. Number 2, wealth is created by owning assets and living below your means. Number 3, growth is the key to happiness. And number 4, relationships take commitment. Now, even though these lessons are very clear, it doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be easy. There's going to be a lot of failure, a lot of trial and errors, and everyone's path is going to be different. But it is through that path, through failure, that how we get better and better and eventually find our own paths in terms of how we want to grow in the game of life. So just understand that failing isn't necessarily bad. Failing is all part of the process. And if you want to know more about overcoming the whole concept of failure, go ahead and check out this video over here where I discuss how you overcome failure and actually turn it into strength to help your growth. So with that being said, thank you so much for watching the video, and I will see you again in the very next one. Take care. Peace.